Welcome to SparkAbility. This is the place where ideas become action, conversations create connection, and the possibilities ignite. Every guest brings a story, every story sparks opportunity, and every opportunity has the power to change lives. Because sometimes it's just one idea, one connection, one conversation is all it takes to spark ability. My name is Sue Roscoff, and I could not be more excited to bring in my wonderful co-host, Michael Martin Hummel, a writer, speaker, and podcaster who is dedicated to bridging the gap between disabled and able-bodied communities. Michael, I am thrilled to see you today. How is it going in your corner of the world? Oh, I can't hear you, hon.
Sorry about that. I'm
You're
doing
good.
good. And I'm just hanging out, and it's good to see you.
Well, and I'm pretty excited about our guest tonight. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Jeff Stock. Jeff is an author, speaker, consultant, actuary, and philanthropist with over 25 years of experience in finance and alternative investing. Jeff specializes in tax reduction strategies and investments, including accelerated depreciation, clean energy tax credits, 1031 exchanges, tax advantaged investing. He is a former chief actuary, real estate investor, and insurance agency owner, and current fund manager known for his quantitative risk managed investment philosophy. Jeff is an avid traveler who has visited over 30 countries, is a competitive marathon runner, tennis and pickleball player, and loves strategy games. His greatest passion is the impact made by supporting clients with alternative investing that creates consistent income while managing the risk intelligently. I'm so happy to have you joining us here, Jeff. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And one thing I need to ask right away, the question about strategy games. What's your favorite?
Yes. I actually play contract bridge almost every single day with uh,
Really?
with a bunch of elderly ladies that are about 80 plus. Um, I I stopped kind of going to the live events, so I go online. There's an app called FunBridge. So there's another. Basically, you can play against robots, but you're playing against somebody else with the same hand, so you can compare your skills to other people. And I really like bridge. And my grandma taught my dad and me, and my dad taught me how to be a good bridge player, and that was his favorite thing to do. And he passed away around 2020, but I kind of keep that alive, and I'm hoping that bridge will still be around in, you know, 50 years when I'm getting to be that old. So I don't know if it will be though. It seems like it's a dying game.
Yeah, I know that was one of the games that I always hear about, the grandparents always enjoy, and I gotta say that is one I have not played, and we're game players in this house, so I'm kind of surprised we haven't gone that direction yet, but I love that. And I know, kind of hitting you with a piece of trivia here right off the bat, but and Jeff, tell me just a little snippet about your company, and then I know we've got Paul in the wings here as well. I'd love to have you bring him in.
Yeah, so we do alternative investments. Some of those are investments that save money on taxes. So we're investing in clean energy infrastructure, and the government provides sometimes tax credits between 30 and 50% on those investments, so you get back your taxes. And then we have a lot of investments that have accelerated depreciation, which just basically means that you can put, as little as 10 to 20% down, but get a write-off for the whole amount. So this is really good for creating tax write-offs. And then I didn't mention it earlier, but we have a lot of angel investments, and I love the name angel investments because these are companies that are trying to change the world, and some of them are trying to help people who have impairments or in disabilities. So, for example, I was in discussions with a company called Adaptix, and they have these glasses you can wear, and then like in real time, it creates the image of what you're looking at, but you look at it from close up, not far away, so it helps people with different macular degeneration issues. Um, so things that can change the world. We're trying to get investors for those companies. I have another company that I invested in. They're working on trials to replace the mammogram. They have a narrow beam thing that spins around and kind of gets a better 3D image of the breast tissue, and it's not as invasive and has less radiation. A lot of different reasons why this is a win, and it's just something that's going to change the world. So, we've made it our mission to try to find companies and investments that are going to change the world for the positive. We have another one that has like a blood test that kind of like the one that was a fraud a long time ago, but this one's for real. So they can take your blood and they can determine whether you need like further testing or higher risk of cancer, and basically find it earlier. We have another one that can detect seizures before they happen. It's not FDA approved yet, but they're working on it. And then another company that's finding cardiac risk before they can determine it today. And then we're doing a lot with stem cell companies. So stem cells are the future. I don't know what people know about it, but there's so much to learn from that technology, and we have a couple companies that are in the forefronts of that are looking for funding currently. So, and then one last one, like robotics, the robotics industry. I during Tech Week in New York, I met with a company called Katana Robotics. They're from overseas, but they were in New York showing off their robots, and they could actually hook up equipment to your body, and when you move, the robot moves exactly the same to mirror you, so that a kid could actually go into like a little fighting ring and fight an adult, and it would be a fair fight because they're both moving the robot the same amount. So really, really interesting technology. We have a 3D printed home company. They're building homes with 3D printing, so that people who don't have the mobility can still do construction work. So a lot of really, really innovative companies that we're not really necessarily looking for one thing. It's just that they sort of find me. So we have a fund that combines all these companies into one pool, so you can kind of be diversified and not have to worry about the risk of just one company. So
That's amazing. I love that. And so many different pieces there that are coming together and all one better
yeah,
than the next.
yeah.
That's wild. I love it.
So someone can donate money to help some things, or they could invest, and they could also help with the world, right? And when you invest and help in the world, you have potential to make a return as well. So, and I'm going to go in
Love
and
it.
charge my computer again. It got up to a little higher, but yeah.
Well, do you want to go ahead and introduce Paul and have him join our conversation?
Yes, I will. So Paul Noodley. He is a former DJ and I'm getting in the dark here, a former DJ who
Good.
knows everything about music. Any trivia from 1960 or 1970 about music, he will know the answer. He'll know the artist, when it was produced, how it did on the charts. He's like a walking encyclopedia of music, and he's also a genius when it comes to finance. So I mean, I could say a lot more, but Paul also volunteers his time in the adaptive skiing, similar to Kurt, who some of you may know, who does adaptive water skiing. Paul's doing adaptive snow skiing, and I'll let Paul say a few more things about himself.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Sue and Kurt, for having us. I definitely appreciate it. And yeah, so it's really interesting. I went many years with I did the adaptive skiing back in the 80s and 90s. My sister lives in Vermont, and I did the family thing. Start and raised a family, and my daughter got married last December, and all of a sudden I woke up one day and said, what am I going to do now? And I got this epiphany saying, you need to go back skiing. So specifically, you can do the adaptive skiing. So it's we're this business that it's a relatively new business, but we've got partners that Jeff has found that are just have been doing this for many years. That's the cool thing. So people are like, wait a minute, you guys haven't been around that long. I said, yeah, but the people that we work with have been. And so, and it's interesting because some of them don't like to, they do the work behind the scene. They don't like to be in front of the camera. So I'm like, oh, there's a camera? Oh, it's like, but it was kind of funny because I was, when I was on the radio, I was on the radio in Boston in the late 80s, and I was still really, really shy back then. I wasn't like I am now. So I was perfectly fine being on the radio. I was like, not, you mean no one can see me, so that's okay. I can talk. But as you can probably tell, my voice I got it from my dad. My dad was actually in communications in the Air Force. And so I have that voice where so many people would say, you should be on the radio with that voice. You kidding me? So one day I woke up and said, I guess I'm going to go to broadcasting school. And so I got on the radio. But I love working with Jeff. I also have an engineering background myself. So him and our brains work very similarly, him being an actuary, anything that has to do with numbers, we're in sync all the time. So for some people, it's like totally boring. It's like, oh, it's math. I hate math. That was like my worst class in school. But it's like, yeah, but it's cool to me. And it's like, and I think that's one of the connections, reason why I'm so into music is because a lot of people don't realize music is math. It's, it's timing and have you. And when you're sitting there, like I've been playing the guitar since I was 9 years old, and it makes sense. It's like, oh, I have that math brain, and that's, and then I just, I listen to a song and I can just tell if it's going to last 50 years or if it's going to last 5 days, and like no one's gonna, no one's gonna remember it. It's unfortunate for younger people now that what they get to listen to. Like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So fortunately, I grew up at a time when the 70s it'll never happen again. I mean, it was just incredible as far as music goes. And you didn't have all the distractions that you have nowadays. But I was talking about the earlier. I love helping people. My parents were foster parents, and my dad was a big brother. And I had the experience when my dad passed away that this person who he was a big brother to came from halfway across the country, to my dad's service, and I was like in shock that he was there, and he's just like, you don't get it. It's like I'm a VP of a large corporation, and I'm not that without your dad. So, and it's it, and that kind of hit home because I'm like, I mean, at that point, I hadn't been doing the adaptive skiing for almost 10 years at that point. No, but about 5 years. And it's just like you just take for granted sometimes, things that, my dad was just, it was like, oh, he's dad. And it's like, yeah, he does that and like whoop-de-doo, big deal. But, some people who don't have that, like this particular person didn't have a father. So it's like you don't appreciate. And that's, I did full circle again this year doing the adaptive skiing, and it's just, when you were talking about the water skiing, that's really cool. But I've never water skied, and I probably never will. but
we can make it happen.
Just like, yeah, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You get me on water skis, and I'll get you on snow skis.
I love it. Done. That's beautiful. I hear your heart in all of that, and how much you enjoy what you do with both with what you do for work and for the fun with what's fun gets done, right? So going out and getting that time out there on the slopes, and not just for you to enjoy making the runs down, but that you're helping others doing that too, because without the role you're playing, the adaptive athletes wouldn't be able to do their role. So it's all about team effort and the smiles, and you did share a story with me earlier. I wonder if you want to share that one again about the young man
Sure.
that you went skiing with.
Yep. Sure. So, yep. So it was a relatively warm day, and when you're talking about skiing, the temperature was in the mid 30s, and this young man, he was 13 years old. He had Downs, and so his entire family skied, and they'd been skiing for 5 years, and he never went on a lift. His skiing experience was basically somebody takes the skis and everybody walks halfway up, the beginner slope, and then skis down. And it was this day, and I tend to be warm anyway, so it was I was dying. I mean, I ended up with just like a basic level like sweater on, and I had 3 layers on. And I had them off. So my mom, I was talking to his mom, and she's just, and I'm like, how long have you? She's like, this is the 5th year, and I said, he's never been on a lift before. She's like, no, and I said, not even the magic carpet. She's like, no, because the trip magic carpet is this thing that you basically it's you get on it's kind of like a people mover, but it goes up the hill, and so and it's got a bubble. It's all covered so you can look around when you're doing it. So I'm like, now usually you're supposed to whatever you're going to do or say, you're supposed to okay with the caregiver first before you do it. But immediately, oh, I forgot to say the story on the other time, but I'll tell you this. So literally, we walked from the lodge out to the area, and we started a conversation. And he's like, well, because of my last name Noodly, my nickname was Noodles growing up, and there was actually multiple Pauls. So I just said, hey Robbie, just in case you get confused about which Paul, I said you can call me Noodles because that's my nickname. So he was like 15 feet away. He walks right up to me and he says, I have a new name for you. I said, oh yeah, what's that? And he said, spaghetti. And I'm like, oh my God. I said, that's my favorite meal. And he's like, mine too. So and she was just like, it usually takes a couple hours before she's like, there's something going on here. He's like, she just immediately went to you. So I had that in my back pocket. So I forgot to mention that in the other story when I was telling you. So she's like pleading with him. She's throwing everything she can possibly think. Going to McDonald's, going to Taco Bell, going to the movies, going to the arcade games, and to get this kid to go on the magic carpet. And he just like no. So this happened to be the time when the Olympics was on. So I looked, and I could see that she was within earshot. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna try this and see what happens. So I'm like, Robbie, I said, you play games with your brothers and sisters? He's like, yeah. I said, you like to win, don't you? He's like, yeah. And I said, yeah, I do too. I really like to win. I said, have you been watching the Olympics? And he's like, yeah. And I said, that you like to watch the skiing, don't you? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, those people that are in the Olympics, they are really, really competitive. They really like to win. And I said, they're doing it for their country. They're part. The country is their team. I'm like, you and I don't know if you realize, but we're on the same team today. And he's like, we are? I'm like, yeah. And I said, now I like to win and you like to win. And I said, we're on the same team. So I said, you know how we win today? And he's like, how? And I said, we go on the magic carpet. We go up, and I said, oh, by the way, it's like, because now you get to ski like 3 times longer because you're much farther up on the hill. And he's like, okay. So I look over his mom, and she's like, "You got to be kidding me!" So, so we got a magic tower carpet. We go up and we start going down, and he's like, you could tell he's like, "Oh, this is way better because I don't have to climb up, and then I only get to ski for like 10 seconds. Now I get to ski like for 3 minutes. This is great." So we get to the point where we're at where you would normally get if you were just walking up, the last little bump. And so I was close enough where I could see his mom. She's, of course, got her camera out. She's videotaping, and the tears are just pouring out of her eyes. So I'm like, oh, that's it. So we got to the bottom. She just came running up to him, gave him a, hug and a kiss, and she came over and hugged me. And she's like, you don't even know. I said, yeah, I do. I saw the tears. I said, I get it. I said, that's why I do this. So I walked away, and just because I kind of started losing it myself, and grabbed my phone and send a text to my wife, just gave her a quick little synopsis, just little, and I said, this is why I do this. I said, guess what? I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm not going to walk away again. It's too good. And for anybody that has never done any kind of volunteering, it doesn't matter what it is, just do it because it's the right thing to do, and there's people that really appreciate you taking the time and showing that you care. And it's you can't, all the money in the world can't buy that. It's great.
Absolutely love it. Michael, I'm gonna pass it your way.
I just had one question for Paul. I was curious, what made you initially want to volunteer for Adaptive Sparks?
So that's actually it's a really good question. So my sister lives in Vermont, and when I was still living in the Boston area, I would drive up there. And she was actually, believe it or not, she was training to be a an amateur power lifter. I'm like, well, she was always like bigger than the rest of the kids. They used to call her Moose. We used to play like football and what have you, and so she was bigger, but she's I mean she was so it kind of made sense. So she happened to be at the gym, and there was this person in a wheelchair, and he was sitting there working out. Now he was a Paralympic. He had come from Colorado, and we had just. So what I realized when I did the history part of the training last year, I always thought that the program had been a few years in Vermont, but that was actually the year that we started. That was the first year. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, we were actually the four founders of this program. So we were one of the first people that did it. So, she's talking to him and he's like, yeah, like they're just starting it up at the mountain. It's starting in a couple of weeks. And so she did it. She had never skied before. This is like the really amazing thing. So they actually taught her on a mono ski. The first time she ever was on a mountain skiing was on a mono ski. So she actually was better in a mono ski than she was stand up ski. But she did it for a couple of weeks and she called me up and she's like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing. Cause at that point I had been skiing for probably about 8 years. And she's like, you would love this. She's like, I know, because at that point, up to that point, I had already been a volunteer for baseball, for Little League. I coached Little League teams while I was in high school and college. And she's like, you'll love this. And she's, oh, by the way, you know how to ski. She's like, I didn't even know how to ski. So she's like, I'm just learning how to stand up ski, but I'm really good at mono ski. So that's how I got into it, Michael. My sister saw someone that was doing the mono ski, and this kid he won a gold medal in the Paralympics. Not that but the 4 years later after that. Yeah, he won a gold medal in the Paralympics, so it was really oh,
Thank you.
we're like hey, we skate with him. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Absolutely love the stories. I know we do have Kurt in the background here as well. I would love to bring him in to join our conversation as well. Kurt, I know it's been a crazy day in our corner here. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, and there's a great point, in it all. So yeah, yesterday we're out at the lake and great night of practice with the ski club, and we kind of knew we had to watch the weather a little bit, but holy smokes, did Mother Nature have a fury to bring upon us? So knocking down all sorts of trees and knocking down our power lines and, damaging equipment from the power company. And boy, oh boy, it took them 24 hours to get us rocking and rolling again. So that, emergency and weather preparedness is a big factor in it all. And as coincidence or serendipity, however you want to chalk it up, but I came from the open mind provided by Stan Anderson and the Motivation Readers Mastermind Network, and they had a guest on there talking about emergency preparedness. And I had served as vice chair of the Wisconsin Council on Physical Disabilities, and when I came into that role, I inherited a project they had going for a year already and a couple years of history of the whole thing. It started with the Council for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. And so that's where it started. A gentleman by the name of Jeff, another Jeff, a different Jeff out here in Wisconsin. He he inspired the state of Wisconsin to take on emergency preparedness for people with disabilities. So folks can go on to find the Wisconsin Council on Physical Disabilities, get to their page with the Department of Health Services, and within that page is the emergency preparedness toolkit that I helped them put together and spent a couple of years promoting it directly as a council member and obviously still promoted today. So when we look at the finances side of things, we know and we plan our finances. We can have an emergency fund and things like that. So, but the discussion today at the Open Mind covered things like travel and having a go bag, because you never know what situation you might be put in. And you got to ask yourself, do I have the money I need? Do I have, is my credit card always with me for if I have to buy things? And, they were talking about, when a tornado or hurricane comes through and then you're going to have water supply issues, get ahead of that storm and pour water into your tubs and into your sinks and have that water availability and don't get stranded in whatever place you're at. And you always got to think of how you can go to where you need to go when you're in an emergency situation. And and when stuff happens, do you have an emergency fund to pay for unanticipated costs? So yeah, we cover it here at SparkAbility any which way it comes. So thanks for doing it, Sue and Paul and Jeff and Michael. What's next, folks?
I do want to circle back around and give the mic back to Jeff again here and see what's on your mind here. What do you want to be sure to share with us today yet?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so I just want to share with anybody who's listening that I mean, one of the kind of the worldviews that I have is that we have sort of interconnectedness between all of us, so that anything that we think or do sort of impacts all of us around us. So for anybody who's not sharing that view, I'd like you to consider thinking about that. And so when you're interacting with people in everyday life, just trying to pretend like they're an extension of you and treat them the way that you would treat yourself, and just kind of be considerate to everybody, wish everybody well, and try to raise goodness rather than like try to do good for the world, and try to base your actions on what's contributing to the most good and the least bad for humanity. And once I started to take that view, things shifted in a way I can't describe. But people came into my life that were pushed me in certain directions where I felt like I was supposed to go. So if you're one of those people that isn't really sure what you're supposed to do or what you're meant to do with your life, try to take that viewpoint of everybody is kind of in oneness together. And I think that's consistent. I mean, we're not supposed to talk about religion, but I think that's consistent with religion to some extent. And that we're all sort of brothers in this, brothers and sisters. So I know that was a little out there, but that's my message for the
I
podcast.
love that viewpoint. That is absolutely beautiful. And well, before I forget, I do want to take just a quick second, have you share your website, and if anybody wants to reach out and ask you questions, find out more about what you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so our company is called Stock Alternatives, and we do diversification away from stocks into private investments and tax strategies. And the website is stockalternatives.com. So, and then, if people want to reach me, jeffstock360.com is another way to reach me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Paul, I'm going to send it to you next. Any kind of take-home message you have for folks or a way that they can get in touch with you too?
Yeah, I'm part of Stock Alternatives. Just to piggyback on what Jeff said, we live in this world. Of course, now we're all dealing with AI, and it doesn't matter what your opinion is about it. It's just so easy to just because everyone's so busy nowadays and we're so used to, immediate satisfaction. And, these things like, for example, when I'm helping people, when someone gets on the slopes for the first time ever, you have to go back to that point and say, they have no idea, they may never even been on snow before, never mind, with strapped to skis, but they've never maybe even been in boots in snow before. So it's just, it's like take a deep breath, relax, and oh, by the way, look around, because nature's kind of a cool thing, and that's another bonus you get by doing, when you're water skiing or when I'm snow skiing. It's like you just stop for a second and just look around. I was like, it's pretty cool. It's like, as long as we still have nature, to be able to admire it, it's, and that's another thing too. Let's help. Let's try and get, try and stop from all the stuff that we've destroyed, over the last 40 or 50 years, and let's try and get the world back to where, where it's supposed to be. But yeah, and the funny thing, I think a lot of people are afraid to say things, like they may think of it, but it's like, oh, if I turn around and say that, everyone's gonna think, oh, what are you, out of your mind? What are you, crazy? It's like, what, so it's like there's more people that think that than, it just it's okay. Be the first to say something. You actually care about somebody else or care about something. It's all right, because you'd be surprised to see all of a sudden. That's the other cool thing too. When I'm talking about volunteering, the one thing I say is the one thing you don't have to worry about when you're in a volunteer organization. There's good people all around you. Somebody who doesn't think that way is not going to be there, so you don't have to worry about having getting into this argument with an egomaniac, because it's not going to happen. Those people don't volunteer. So if you're someone that's always sitting back, like I believe it or not, I actually grew up as an introvert. But if you're someone that's been in the background, like, all the time, and just watching these extroverts, like, run the world, it's like, just get out of your comfort zone and try. You'll be like I said before. You try it once, and I guarantee you'll be hooked. It's the greatest feeling. So I get the chance to do that in the volunteering, but I also get to do it, with Jeff and our team. We have a wonderful team. We're really lucky. As you said earlier, Sue, you can kind of tell, the camaraderie and the teamwork, and I've worked for a lot of companies, I worked for management that absolutely had no idea what they were doing. And it's just really it's a breath of fresh air to be fortunate enough to be in an organization where I'm helping my family, I'm helping Jeff's family, but I'm helping families that are our clients that become part of our family. It's a neat thing to have. It's really, and I just meeting you tonight. You guys are, you get it as well, and it's really, and it's nice to know that there's there's I know there's more people out there, and this is just really cool. It's a great place to you know have it reinforced that there's good people out there still, even though certain people make us think there isn't. It's like, no, there's still good people out there. So thanks
Love it.
again for having us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So glad you guys could join us tonight. Actually, Michael, I'm going to pass it back to you for any final thoughts you have tonight as well.
Sorry. I was muted because it's kind of loud here. I just love what you're doing as far as the angel investing, because my family has had a lot of cancer in their lives. So my father especially. So what you're doing is making a big impact, and my wife is struggles with a lot of seizures in her life. So she's had like a lot of them. So just thank you for what you're doing.
Love it.
Great. It all
Lives.
it all starts with innovators who want to make a difference, and then they put the mind. They get investors, and then they can do a lot more when they have funding. So
Beautiful. Changing the world one at a time. And I absolutely love that. Kurt, I want to pass it back to you for your final thought.
Well, thanks everybody again for being a part of this, thrusting and emerging SparkAbility program here, co-creating it, redefining it, giving it all the twists and turns that we can dish out here in television fashion. And simulcasting it out to YouTube and other social media fashions. This all again comes from our passion in water skiing that really catapulted us into the world of adaptive water skiing. And I just actually was looking over some notes for next week for a transportation consumer advocacy team meeting from Independence First. Brian Peters heading the thing up. I see the email distribution has about 20 of us on the list, and Independence First is also inquiring about our adaptive water skiing event this Saturday. So there you go, community involvement on all sides, and shout out to Nonprofit TV for a great program with brick and mortar television coordination able to go on. So I was able to go into our local library today and I was able to talk to the reference librarian and say, hey, we can come in as nonprofit TV and enhance what you guys are doing. With they have like about 8 TVs around the library, and they're showing all their events and all their programs and stuff, which very impressive, very impressive at the library in Sussex, Wisconsin, USA, Milwaukee area. But I said, if you want to up your game, we'd be happy to dive at that. We got global streaming television networks here and all sorts of magic we can create together. So we'll see what response I get from the assistant director there. And so that's what it is, networking, building relationships, and pooling ideas. That's how we more than sextuple the access to the sport of water skiing in 6 years here in Wisconsin. We gave the other people the air to express themselves, and then we helped them execute the story that they offered us to be a part of with their admiration for adaptive water skiing. What they saw was possible with adaptive water skiing. It was a ginormous success. 20 people told me we needed to do a train the trainer program. It ended up being a 2-day train the trainer program, 80 people going through it. They went back to their communities and it became institutionalized. Thousands of people a member of the Wisconsin Water Ski Federation. Everybody agrees that everybody skis and executing ongoing forever in the future the inclusion of water skiing campaign. So everybody podcasts, everybody loves TV, everybody wants to be on radio. We do it all here. We're all forms of media, whether it's books or magazines or films, all the stuff, because we want to get what you're doing out there, out around the world. And we're working with such amazing people. We are literally creating a network that you're a part of that in about a half a dozen years, we're confident we're going to be reaching every person on the planet. 8.3 billion. Let's go for it, Sue. Back to you.
Amazing. And that's what SparkAbility is all about: igniting conversations, inspiring communities, and celebrating ability. Because one conversation really can change a life. I can't thank you guys enough for all you've done to contribute to that conversation. Jeff, Paul, we look forward to the connections that continue into our future. As always, from all of us here with Spark.